we want to talk a little bit more about the pressure on the consumer and indeed how that ends up being a political thought point for Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont. Wonderful to have him here in the studio. Thank you for joining us, Governor.
Good afternoon.
It has been such a political focus on inflation, of course, from an administration perspective. When you're looking more locally, is it something that you feel you need to make change on to be alleviating some of the price pressure for the blue-collar worker, the white-collar worker in your state?
Absolutely. Look, I spent 2.5 years looking at the COVID infection rate every 3 hours, and I've spent the last 6 months looking at the price of gasoline. We're a car-dependent state, as you can imagine. And look, inflation is a heavy tax on the middle class and working families. So we really wanted to get money out to those families, middle class folks, this summer to help alleviate a little bit. We cut the gas tax by 25 cents, doing little things to make it easier. I don't think this inflation is permanent, but I know how tough it is on working families.
Are there longer term measures that you can take as a governor at the state level that maybe helps to blunt the impact should maybe this persist longer than what we now think it's going to do?
And we have $650 million in tax cuts, early focus on the middle class. I think that's the most I can do as a governor going forward. You know, what I got to do more broadly and what the federal government's got to do is get your fiscal house in order. We balanced our budget 4 years in a row.
Just to be clear, I mean, you get blamed for this, whether fairly or not. And I know that your opponent in the upcoming races has basically tried to tar you as somebody who was maybe not paying enough attention to inflation. I guess the question is, how much can you do as a governor? I mean, we know this is primarily the purview of the federal government, of monetary policy. As a state governor, can you do more?
Don't get into a big debate about fiscal policy in Washington or Vladimir Putin. Say, look, I know the pain you're going through, and this is what I can do as a governor to help you. I can get you a $500 child tax rebate check in time for your kid to go back to school. I can cut your gasoline tax right now to make a difference in your life. I can eliminate the income tax for folks on fixed income, Social Security, and 401ks. People don't expect me to solve for worldwide inflation, but they sure as heck want me to do everything I can to make their lives a little easier.
Let's talk about then the wage equation of this. It was interesting. Morgan Stanley was out with a note highlighting how demanding this labor market has become, that now for the first time in a while, state and local employees are now actually competing with the private sector. The wages being offered in the private sector are so much more attractive. What are you doing to boost employment, to boost wages for your state and local employees who look to the private sector and say, hey, why wouldn't I go there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Remember, for the last 40 years, we said, oh, boy, these state employees, well, look at that pension. They're retiring at the age of 55. Now we're having a hard time holding our state employees because of, as you say, private sector, pressure. You know, DOT, Department of Transportation engineers, we got to give them a bonus. We got to raise them up. We're doing everything we can to attract. And by the way, state government has another benefit. You're making a big difference in people's lives. So you just don't compete on benefits. You also compete on the value of what you're doing.
The other side of that, in the past, we've talked about the superlatives around Connecticut, the most heavily indebted state per capita, in part because of the unfunded pension liabilities, you name it, the most heavily taxed per capita. How then do you balance that when you're thinking about a debt burden as well as a tax base that is borne out?
So we inherited deficits. We've had 4 surpluses in a row. I've paid down about almost $6 billion of our unfunded pension liability. I thought that was the type of thing they cared about, maybe at Bloomberg, but not the man on the street. They really do care, because that is sort of symptomatic of a place that can't get its fiscal house in order. And by the way, it's going to save taxpayers almost $500 million a year, as far as the eye can see, because we paid down that much debt.
Also, like, to make sure that you're keeping the right talent from a state perspective as well, are you looking at the way in which people are working? How is that affecting the migration that's going on in Connecticut at the moment? The way in which they pay taxes, maybe if they're working from home from a private perspective, are you looking to, make sure that New York doesn't get all the tax benefits for that? And also from your own employees at a state level, how much are you having to say, look, okay, you can work from home a little bit more because that will improve your life balance in some way?
Exactly. Look, I like everybody in the office. I'm getting a lot of new state employees. They need mentors there. But that said, I got to compete. One of the ways we can compete is allow people a lot more flexibility in terms of where they work. That saves them on daycare and things like that. We're finding a lot of the folks who used to have to drive in or commute into New York City every day now maybe commuting 1 or 2 days a week and spending 3 or 4 days closer to home. These are all things that I think benefit the Connecticut lifestyle. You can, be closer to home and yet still have have a great job.
Do you worry about the competition for, just to get to Caroline's point a little bit deeper, for businesses, for employers, and the competition that we've been seeing between states, particularly in the tri-state area here with New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, all sort of competing for the same group of companies?
Every company that comes to Connecticut, every company that's thinking about Connecticut asks the same thing: workforce, workforce, workforce. Will I have the IT folks? Will I have the skills I need going forward? So we've taken a lot of the federal money, put that right in the workforce development. I don't give people big billion-dollar incentives to move their company here, but I say I'm going to train the people you need to make sure you have the workforce for the 21st century.
Really appreciate it. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont and Romaine, I took all three my level 3 CFAs in Hartford, Connecticut.
In Hartford, Connecticut.
So it's good
Wow.
luck.
There you
How
go.
about that?
Good luck.